Crimea, a peninsula washed by the Black Sea, bridges ancient memories with contemporary disputes. From Greek colonies and Tatar fortresses to Sevastopol, its history reflects the encounters of empires and cultures. Its identity, shaped by diverse peoples, conveys the persistence of a strategic land. Trade routes, wars, and alliances have left their imprint on its ports and landscapes. Today, Crimea symbolizes both Russian pride and Ukrainian resistance. On its soil converge history, geopolitics, and the destiny of an entire region. But why does Russia consider Crimea indispensable? Could its fate decide the future of the war? Let us explore together and discover why Crimea is far more than just a battlefield. Crimea, the symbolic core of the conflict. Crimea represents the political, military, and strategic heart of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. For Moscow, the peninsula is a symbol of power and national identity, while for Ukraine, it is occupied territory that must be reclaimed. The dispute over Crimea is not only territorial but also symbolic, reflecting decades of historical and geopolitical tensions. Control over the peninsula determines the balance of power in the Black Sea and shapes any peace negotiations. The Russian presence in Sevastopol provides decisive military advantages and maintains pressure on Ukraine. As long as Crimea's status remains unresolved, any attempt to end the conflict is inherently limited. The peninsula has become the red line of the conflict, concentrating the greatest strategic value and emotional sensitivity for both nations. Crimea, historical and cultural value. Crimea possesses profound historical and cultural significance that reinforces its importance for Russia, but its history stretches far before Russian incorporation. The peninsula was inhabited by Greeks, Scythians, and later Tatar peoples, who established the Crimean Khanate after the fall of the Mongol Empire. These populations left a unique cultural legacy, with port cities, trade routes, and traditions that shaped the region's identity. Under Ottoman rule, Crimea became a key strategic and commercial hub, serving as a bridge between Europe and Asia. In 1783, following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, Crimea was incorporated into the Russian Empire, further accumulating historical and cultural value. Russian collective memory regards it as a territory linked to the nation's historic grandeur, and communities with cultural and linguistic ties to Russia reinforce Moscow's narrative of belonging. Local culture, historical monuments, and memories of resistance and military victories have cemented Crimea as a national symbol. Crimea, the gateway to the Black Sea, how and why it became part of Russia. Crimea joined the Russian Empire in 1783 after defeating the Ottoman Empire, securing access to the Black Sea. The peninsula became a strategic point for controlling maritime routes and projecting power into the Mediterranean. Its location allows Russia to maintain year-round operational ports, crucial for both its navy and commerce, avoiding the northern ports that freeze during winter. Since then, Crimea has been perceived as Russia's southern gateway, vital for security and international projection. This strategic value explains why Moscow considers its control non-negotiable. Combined with its historical ties and privileged location, Crimea serves as a hub connecting military, economic, and political interests, ensuring Russia a dominant position in the Black Sea and influence across the Mediterranean and Caucasus regions. Crimea, importance in the Soviet era and the military value of Sevastopol. During the Soviet era, Crimea maintained significant military and strategic importance. Sevastopol, its main port, hosted the Black Sea Fleet and ensured Soviet naval control in the Mediterranean. The peninsula allowed the USSR to project power into southern Europe and the Middle East, with extensive military infrastructure including bases, shipyards, and coastal defense systems. Even after the Soviet Union's dissolution, Russia continued to consider Sevastopol and Crimea essential to national security. The military significance of the peninsula is not merely historical. The naval base enables coastal defense, force deployment, and power projection into critical regions. Any negotiation over Crimea therefore requires careful military balancing, as losing the peninsula would mean losing the capacity to dominate the Black Sea and maintain strategic influence in the region. Black Sea. Geopolitics. The NATO factor. Crimea plays a central role in Black Sea geopolitics, where Russian, Turkish, and NATO interests converge. Controlling the peninsula allows Moscow to secure its southern flank and project influence into Eastern Europe and the Mediterranean. NATO's expansion toward Ukraine and the southern continent has generated direct tensions. Crimea acts as a defensive line against alliance presence. Its location enables monitoring of strategic maritime routes and military movements. Russia's 2014 annexation partly responded to fears that Ukraine's closer ties to NATO would compromise Russian security. Crimea, therefore, is not only symbolically and historically important, but also a critical element in Moscow's defensive and offensive strategy, solidifying its geopolitical position vis-à-vis the West. Crimea. Strategic and energy value. Crimea is also vital for controlling trade routes and energy resources. The Black Sea connects Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and the peninsula allows Russia to dominate the maritime transit of grain, energy, and goods. Additionally, gas and oil deposits in its waters enhance its economic and strategic importance. Maintaining control over Crimea secures Russian influence over key markets and energy security vis-à-vis Europe, especially in times of conflict. For Ukraine, the Russian presence restricts its own exports and creates economic vulnerability. This balance makes Crimea a critical asset not only militarily but also economically, consolidating its role as a pivot of Russian power in the region and a central element in any peace negotiations. Crimea. Land bridge and military balance. Since 2022, Russia has sought to consolidate a land bridge connecting Crimea with southern Ukraine, ensuring direct supply and troop mobility. This strategy reinforces military control over the region and maintains the balance of forces in Moscow's favor. Controlling southern Ukraine guarantees protection of the peninsula and extends power beyond the Black Sea. For Ukraine, this corridor represents a strategic challenge. As long as it exists, Crimea continues to secure Russian superiority in the zone. The land bridge is not only a logistical asset, but also symbolizes Russia's capacity to consolidate territorial presence and ensure strategic continuity, making Crimea an indispensable pivot for any military outcome or future negotiation. Crimea. The line between peace and escalation. Crimea functions as the clearest red line in the conflict. Its status defines the limits of any negotiation and the potential for peace. For Russia, losing the peninsula would constitute a strategic and symbolic defeat. For Ukraine, conceding it would mean accepting prolonged occupation and compromising territorial integrity. This dilemma makes Crimea the point where all military, political, and diplomatic interests converge. Consequently, the peninsula can both trigger escalations and condition ceasefire agreements. Its control determines regional security, power balance, and stability in southern Ukraine, cementing Crimea as the territory that concentrates the highest tension and remains the key to any durable resolution of the conflict. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Leave your reflections below, subscribe to the Geography channel for more geopolitical explorations, and share this video to expand the discussion. See you next time in our ongoing journey through history, power, and place.